the FTC is bringing independent piecemeal actions against content creators for violating COPPA, that may discourage content creators from posting content on YouTube. So the analogy that I think of, imperfect, is the expression about shooting fish in a barrel. And YouTube is the barrel, and the content creators are the fish.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Video Call-In Show. That show that invites you to be a live video guest on this program to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Tonight, however, I'm going to talk about that which has gotten so many people in an uproar, and rightfully so in some cases. I think most of the answers are contained within the FTC's press conference held just a few days ago. And if you've watched it, that's wonderful. I plan on going through a few clips tonight, actually most of the conference. It is 45-minute sleeping pill for some, very informative for others, and just absolutely terrifying for even others still. But I thought it was appropriate that someone do this because there's some things that people aren't talking about, and I hope to cover those. Now, what I've done is I've gone through and I've actually, like I said, I've chopped a bunch of clips out of here that I think that are very, very relevant, and perhaps my commentary will give you a little bit of insight. Again, or I should point out that I am not a lawyer. Do not take what I say as legal advice. If you find yourself in a position of not knowing where to go with this, then you really need to secure the services of a lawyer and make sure that you're protected. Now, we're going to talk about a whole lot of things that, and I've got to make some adjustments here. Pardon me. This was up to the moment editing, so bear with me. There are going to be some eye-opening statements said by both the chairman, Joe Simmons, and the bureau director, Andrew Smith, on the subject. Like I said, most of these are self-explanatory. They literally outline exactly what they plan to do, how they arrived at the penalties for Google and YouTube, and then even more importantly, what it means to us creators. And in just a minute, we will get into that. I didn't have time to kill my or change my auto settings on these inputs, so bear with me here just for a second. While I'm doing that, I want to say hello to those folks that have shown up in the chat. Oh, by the way, I'm live every Sunday through Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If call-in shows are your bag of chips, I highly recommend that you give this video a like, give all the videos a like. Make sure that you follow, make sure you subscribe. Ring that bell so you don't miss another notification. And if you're on a different platform, make sure you follow us so that you too are notified when we go live. Again, that's Sunday through Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern. All right, I'm just about done here. I see from Scott Victor that he went through this for 2 hours or more. Scott, I feel your pain, my friend. I did it myself. And of course, after I'm done going through these clips, and bear with me because it does bear analysis here. It's not going to be fast, but okay, almost. All right, good. I think that's got him. First off, they go through introductions for both Joe Simmons and Andrew Smith, and then of course there's an overview. And let me just squeeze myself back here. There is an overview provided by the chairman, Joe Simmons, that I think is relevant to listen to. Let's hear that.
So thank you very much for being here, and let me present Chairman Joe Simmons.
Good morning. and welcome to the Federal Trade Commission. Today, I am pleased to announce that Google and YouTube have agreed to pay $170 million and to implement strong conduct relief in settlement of an action brought by the FTC and the New York State Attorney General's Office for alleged violations of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act.
Now, I want to point out that the reason that he says alleged is because it's a settlement. They did not go to court with this. It was a settlement between Google, YouTube, and the FTC. So I want to make that very, very clear, so that we can use that as future reference for what they say later on in the conference. Let's continue.
Commonly known as COPPA. Let me start by explaining why we allege that Google and YouTube violated our rule implementing COPPA.
This is important.
COPPA requires that certain websites and apps get parents' consent before collecting personal information from children. The definition of personal information includes cookies used in behavioral advertising. The COPPA rule applies differently to third parties serving behavioral ads versus creators of child-directed content. While the content creators are strictly liable for COPPA compliance, third parties are subject to COPPA's requirements only where they have actual knowledge that the website or service they're serving the ads to is child-directed.
Now, I find this part particularly interesting. He says that content creators are directly responsible, well, the platforms that they host their content on aren't directly liable. Now, what that tells me initially is, in other words, or I should say, I'm completely befuddled as to why that would be the case. You got to remember that content creators aren't dropping cookies, although the point they're trying to make is that we're knowingly uploading content to a platform that may or may not cater to children. And that's an important distinction here. Although I still believe it's misdirected, since we don't have direct control over that outside of now being able to classify our content, whether as to for children or not for children. So let's continue.
To put it in context for today's case, YouTube as a general audience platform is not strictly liable under COPPA for the content of the videos uploaded by others to its platform, unless it has actual knowledge that the content is child-directed.
This will come into play very clearly here soon, especially as it relates to that declaration that we're all asked to make.
Our complaint alleges numerous instances in which YouTube and Google had actual knowledge of the child-directed nature of channels and videos on the YouTube platform.
This is honestly where I believe that the reason we're in the spot we're in today is because this act that was passed in 1998, revised in 2013, was on Google and YouTube's radar. They chose to ignore it. I want you to keep that in mind as we watch these.
This is the basis for the FTC to find that Google and YouTube violated COPPA. Our order accomplishes three important purposes. First, it imposes a substantial monetary judgment of $170 million, with $136 million going to the Federal Trade Commission as a civil penalty and $34 million going to the state of New York. The $170 million judgment is 30 times larger than the largest COPPA civil penalty the FTC has ever previously obtained. It is 3 times larger than any privacy penalty assessed against Google anywhere else in the world. And it is 10 times larger than the civil penalties we have obtained in all of our 31 prior COPPA cases combined.
This is backpatting.
A penalty of this magnitude sends a strong signal about the importance of children's privacy. Second, the order requires the companies to refrain from using or benefiting from the data that they previously collected from child-directed videos or channels. Third, the order imposes additional obligations on Google and YouTube that go beyond the requirements of COPPA. The order requires YouTube and Google to notify channel owners about their potential COPPA obligations. It also requires YouTube to develop a system or a mechanism through which channel owners must identify their child-directed content on the YouTube platform.
Honestly, it's my assessment that Google and YouTube should have known this well in advance of the COPPA apocalypse, which, incidentally, the term COPPA apocalypse, I thought for sure I had coined that a few days ago on a different live stream. Then I learned that it's a trending hashtag on, on Twitter. We can't win them all. Let's go on.
So that such content can be treated in a COPPA compliant manner. This is particularly significant because COPPA does not require platforms such as YouTube to determine whether the videos posted by others are directed to kids or not. Going forward, YouTube and Google will automatically have knowledge of and COPPA liability for all child-directed content designated through this mechanism.
You get the irony there. First off, he says that platforms aren't responsible for knowing, but yet he says that they now have to enforce it. I find that very, very odd. But we can discuss that later. By the way, after I'm done with this, I am going to open up the video lines, and you guys are more than welcome to jump on and give your opinions. Maybe I'm wrong about some of this. I've been wrong before, and I don't mind being told so. If it's a convincing argument, by gosh, I will change my opinion. So let's continue.
In this way, the order prevents YouTube and Google from turning a blind eye to the existence of kids' content on the YouTube platform. Finally, YouTube must provide annual training about compliance with COPPA for employees that deal with the channel owners. None of this is required by law. No other company in America is subject to these types of requirements, and they will impose significant costs on YouTube.
No one as of yet. No, actually, what he's saying is that the requirements that are not required by law, no one else is. But I want to make sure that that's not misconstrued as no one is also held accountable for being COPPA compliant.
This case sends strong messages to third parties like YouTube, channel owners, and the business community as a whole. For YouTube and other third parties like it that serve ads, they can't market their ability to get child viewers on the one hand and disavow knowledge that children are using their service on the other. They can't rate videos as kid-directed for one purpose and then say they have no COPPA liability when they collect information from kids watching those videos. For those who create child-directed content to upload on YouTube, the message from today's case is that the FTC considers these videos and channels to be websites or online services directed to children under the rule and thus strictly liable for compliance with COPPA.
Now that's a very, and the reason I am spending more time, because I don't spend near as much time on the Bureau Director as I am right now the chairman, because he makes a lot of the points right up front in his opening. It's 6 minutes 42 seconds, but there are a lot of great points and an overview points that I think we all need to take away from this. And again, if you watched this, I apologize, but I implore everyone to watch it front to back, because when I get further into this, I'm going to go over just a few select questions that were posed to Mr. Smith, and that is because he primarily answered questions. So let's continue.
Once our order has been effective for a period of time, the Commission will conduct a sweep of the YouTube platform to determine whether child-directed content is being properly designated as such in order to ensure that the channels themselves are complying with COPPA. Finally, to the business community at large, let me be clear. The FTC takes its obligation to enforce COPPA seriously. If companies violate COPPA, the FTC will take aggressive action, require corrective measures, and use its authority to seek substantial civil penalties.
When he says companies, make no mistake, he's also talking about small YouTubers, right? You're considered a sole proprietor, and that's my assessment. But the way they describe it later on, they lump in creators as business owners, especially because anytime you start making money from a venture, you are in a sense an unwritten sole proprietor. So keep that in mind when he says they're going to go after folks aggressively. I just want to make that point.
Let me close by thanking our partners at the New York State Attorney General's office, and I would like to thank in particular the FTC staff attorneys, Kristen Cohen, Tiffany George, and Peter McGee, for their tireless work on this case. Thank you, and I'd like to turn the podium now over to Andrew Smith, our Bureau Director.
Okay, so it's interesting. Listen to he talked about New York and of course the lawyers. Mr. Smith coming up is going to talk to us about what's the best word for it? How the proceeds from this settlement are to be distributed and why that is. So we'll get to that, but I wanted you to make note of that. So yeah, that is about it in a nutshell from the chairman's point of view. Covered a lot of high points. Now the next one, when the Bureau Director Andrew Smith comes up, he's primarily there to answer questions. Although he does give a little bit of commentary up front, and we'll listen to that now.
Thank you. So the floor is open for questions. I wanted to reiterate, while you're collecting yourselves for questions, that some of the points the chairman made.
He does exactly that, and I'm skipping this part, of course, because he covers it exactly the same, but he does have something to say very shortly.
$170 million of that is dedicated to us. So with this action, we are actually reimbursing the Treasury and the taxpayers for our operating expenses for this year. So no need for all of you to thank me now, but you're welcome.
I'm not going to thank Mr. Smith, and I'll tell you why I won't thank Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith just said that the money that has been taken from a private business is now repaying the efforts of the government. Okay, that's exactly it. But it's not thankworthy. And I'll tell you why it's not thankworthy is because that money's got to come from somewhere. And you've heard me say this before, that that companies don't crap money. They literally get money from you and I. People pay those fines. And all that money that came from Google, our money's paid by us, more other companies, and it's a vicious cycle in that. But so I don't ever take solace in the fact that the government has been compensated using whose ever funds, unless it's from a foreign entity, as something to celebrate. So I just had to jab that in there.
And maybe most importantly, that this action is changing YouTube's business model, that YouTube cannot bury its head in the sand. YouTube cannot pretend that it's not aware of the content on its platform and hope to escape liability for COPPA. YouTube is going to be explicitly held liable for complying with COPPA where it has actual knowledge of the content. YouTube is going to be required to seek out that actual knowledge through requiring content creators and channel owners to specifically designate whether they are directed to children. And as the chairman noted, not only can we sue Google and YouTube for compliance with COPPA, but also individual channel owners and content creators. And once this order has been fully implemented, we intend to conduct a sweep of the YouTube platform to determine whether there remains child-directed content on the platform with respect to which personally identifiable information continues to be collected. So, question?
So he goes into this in more detail later, but I find it extraordinarily curious that he says that they're under YouTube, or I should say platforms, because this is not the only one that's going to be hit. Platforms, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. Platforms are not going to be held liable unless they have direct knowledge. Now they're going to have to actively seek out knowledge. I think that's a I think that's a contradiction by the FTC, and I hope that they address that moving forward, because you can't make somebody go out and find what they're liable for. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. You can't tell someone that they're not liable for other people's actions and then say that you have to go out and find those people who are making you liable for their actions. It's kind of an odd way to say that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So I found that very curious. And then he talks about the sweep that they're going to do, and this is a point that a lot of people have questions about. That is in the next clip, actually, and I think it's worth hitting.
Yes, there's a question right in front here.
Thank you, Dave Pereira from Amlex. You've referred multiple times to the sweep that the FTC will conduct on YouTube channels, and it's an important part of the enforcement of this order. Yet there are 23 million channels that upload a combined 500 hours of video every minute. So, given that amount of content, what kind of meaningful sweep can you conduct?
Well, I think that we have a variety of tools at our disposal to cull through those 23 million channels and in an expeditious way. I mean, this is the way that we generally enforce COPPA, is by actually reviewing content to determine if it's directed to children. We have a variety of factors in our rule that we consider when determining whether or not content is directed to children. And so that's the way we do business. It has been successful so far. I think that I have no doubt that it will be similarly successful with respect to YouTube, despite the large quantity of information on the platform.
Now, this is important because he goes into detail about how machine learning and algorithms may not be the correct tool for this, and I think what he's implying is that it's going to be more of a human sort of sweep. In other words, they're going to rely, and this is my assessment of it, they're going to rely on information submitted to them. That's how they actually came to this lawsuit. Now, some of the privacy advocates had brought this to their attention, and they decided to go after. He says YouTube's a barrel. I would argue that YouTube is just a big fish in a much larger barrel, and the complaints came down because YouTube is that big fish. So they have decided that to make an example of YouTube. Well, they also don't want to rely on machine learning to find out how egregious the violations are. They're going to wait for other people to tell them exactly what content they think is trying to skirt by as not made for kids, but yet still directed at kids. And mark my words on that. I don't have any proof one way or the other, but I can almost guarantee that that's going to be the way they have to do it. They don't have the manpower to go through each individual channel and video and all that. I mean, you're talking about 24 million channels, 23 they said, I think, and you can't imagine how many individual videos there are that they would have to go through. And this is even after the initial wave of choices are concerned, right? The declarations. So many people are going to automatically choose their entire channel as kid-oriented. Others are going to choose individual videos, and a vast majority of the people, if I was a betting man, are going to say that their content is not directed at kids. Once that first wave goes through, once the self-policing that YouTube plans on doing is done, then they're going to go through and they're going to rely on tips. Really, I mean that's just the only way they can do it. That's now he's going to talk about a little bit about misidentification of your content, and I think this is really fascinating.
Yes, Margaret.
Commissioner Slaughter raised concerns that this would maybe incentivize content creators to misidentify programming to ensure that they continue to receive revenue from behavioral advertising. Can you respond to that criticism, and how might the FTC combat that issue?
So I think that's a valid concern. There is apparently, we've learned in this investigation and just learned from, in the now information in the public domain, that there are benefits to gathering information and targeting advertising. And so it is possible that content creators will misdesignate. So one response to that is that's why we're conducting the sweep. The second response to that is that there will be consequences for content creators who misdesignate, including being kicked off the YouTube platform. So if content creators are not sincere or forthcoming with YouTube and designating content as being directed to children, there will be consequences for them. We also think that YouTube has strong incentives to police its platform, both to avoid future enforcement actions by the FTC, but also because it's offering this platform to content creators. And if the FTC is bringing independent piecemeal actions against content creators for violating COPPA, that may discourage content creators from posting content on YouTube. So the analogy that I think of, imperfect, is the expression about shooting fish in a barrel. And YouTube is the barrel, and the content creators are the fish. And so it's a place where this content is centralized, and essentially it's easy for us to find.
I find that a little bit a little bit of an odd. I wouldn't say that's an analogy imperfect. I liked mine earlier, using his same analogy against the actual barrel. But so it makes it easy to find. It doesn't address the question as what if. Well, I did. It does address the question as what if you misidentify your content? You are going to see penalties, and then he, like I said, he encapsulates that into a, I would say, clumsy. And Mr. Smith, if you're watching this, I don't mean to, besmirch the the analogy, but I don't know that it's imperfect. I would say that we're easy pickings because we are kind of centralized, and this is the largest video audience out there. It just happens to be. But I think more importantly is that our takeaway should be that they can and will come after individual creators. And I know we knew this, but it's good to hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will. Now, he goes on to say what COPPA is and what COPPA isn't. And I think these are all questions posed, of course, by journalists in the room and on the phone. I apologize for some of the audio because it is low. And I thought I brought it up to a decent level, but I'll try to stand further away from the mic so you guys can turn up your speakers. So let's get to that one specifically.
It's important to keep in mind what the COPPA rule does and what the COPPA rule doesn't do. So what COPPA does is it prohibits the collection of personally identifiable information from children under the age of 12 and under without verifiable parental consent.
Now, I want to break it here because I think this is of extreme importance. One, this is where I think YouTube is screwed up. They haven't limited the age. I mean, you can limit your content to 18 and above, but they really haven't, outside of starting up a new account, they haven't limited or they don't have age restrictions, and that was a huge misstep, and it's why we're feeling it now. If they had proper age limiting or parental consent for going onto YouTube, because you can go on YouTube without an account, and then I don't think we would be seeing this same sort of problem. I get it, man. It was a financial decision. You start locking out your site and don't make it free access. It's tough to build an audience at that point. But once they have the audience, I think they missed an opportunity to avoid a lot of this by age restricting. I just had to throw that in there.
On the internet, though, you don't know who your users are. So what the COPPA rule more specifically does is where the content is directed to children, we are presuming that the users are 12 and under. So if you are...
I hate that statement. I absolutely hate that statement. Presumptions are dangerous. Presumptions are often correct, but they're often incorrect. And the very fact that they are often incorrect, I think, is a huge misstep. It should be provable. With the tools that we have available to us today on the interwebs, we should be able to identify most of these. I could be making cartoons like a I don't know, something so benign as a Bugs Bunny and derivative. And yet, the only reason I would be liable or I should say, not liable, but in non-compliance with COPPA, is that my videos on this platform are publicly available. I'm just saying. So I don't like that at all. I don't know about you guys.
Are the purveyor of child-directed content, we are presuming that your users are 12 and under, and you cannot collect personally identifiable information from them without verifiable parental consent. If, however, you are a general audience platform like YouTube, you don't know what the content necessarily on your platform is. So we, under our rule and under the statute,
I would also argue that you don't know who your audience is. Honestly. I mean, who among us actually has 13 and below? I don't remember what the analytics age group was for that. Who among us has a preponderance of very, very young children watching our content? And how are they tracking that? If they can track it accurately, then those are the numbers they should be going after, not this nebulous presumption. All right?
you are only held liable if you have actual knowledge that the content is child-directed. So that's what we
Well, but he doesn't say that. That's the point.
mean when we talk about strict liability for content creators, but a knowledge requirement for a general audience platform like YouTube.
Yeah. So what I said stands. It's I can't believe that they would go under. God damn it. So here we are again. 30 minutes into this program, and YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Guys, let me know if I start buffering, because I'm seeing a solid stream and nothing's going on. Okay. So I'm just going to continue. At this point, I'm going to record this just so I can have it in case it does start wigging out on us. And of course, that's probably going to bottleneck a little bit, but hey, who cares? All right. So now Mr. Smith is going to talk about the FTC on the changes that YouTube has decided to make. And I thought this was interesting as well.
Joan Salzmann from CNET, please go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to see if either the chairman or the director had seen the policy changes YouTube announced this morning, and whether or not any of those go beyond what's included in the complaint and consent decree.
So I have not. This is Andrew Smith, the bureau director. Our chairman has had to leave for a meeting, but I have not seen the changes announced this morning by YouTube. I would say that over the last couple of months, there have been a variety of articles written about the changes that are being contemplated by YouTube. I would say that some of those are probably motivated by our order, and some of those are motivated by an interest in creating what I'll call a kid-safe zone, whether that be an app or a website where there is curated content for kids that parents can have confidence in. And it seems to me as though everyone, all of the stakeholders, the consumer advocates, the privacy groups, the parent advocates, the FTC, members of Congress, and industry would believe that the most beneficial end state would be general audience platforms hosting kid-safe zones where curated content can be provided and kids won't be subjected to violent or otherwise inappropriate content or advertisements or marketing. So I haven't seen this morning's changes, but I'm encouraged by them, and I do think that, at least in part, they may be motivated by our order and also by our investigation and inquiry. Oh, the changes are based on the order? Okay, so my staff has just said that she just took a look at the changes, and they are based on our order.
Thank you.
Joan.
Kind of think he should have known that. he can't know everything, but I would assume that he's being well briefed, and even at that point he should know that. But I thought that was interesting that that they are aware and they're happy about the changes that YouTube are doing, and it is what it is. I think specifying your content or declaring what your content is the right thing to do. I'll just say that. It shouldn't be confusing, Josh and Kayla. Welcome to the show, by the way. Guys, while you're here, make sure you throw a like, you follow it, and of course, subscribe. This isn't the normal format, but I thought this affects all of us in one way or another. So I thought it was very, very important that we cover this at least in full, and it may take the whole show. I apologize for that, but I think it's information that a lot of people are confused about, and I more than anyone don't want that to be. So we're going to continue to go through. We've got another question about is Google going to police creators themselves, and that's the next question coming up.
And our next question is from Tony Rahm with Washington Post.
Thanks, guys. Maybe this will work this time. I just want to follow up on something that a few others have asked at this point. I don't see anywhere in the order that explicitly requires Google to police YouTube to ensure that channel operators are appropriately labeling. And second, I can't tell if the commission ever sought to require Google to do that, to implement the kinds of machine learning tools that would do that active, constant policing. So can you talk about that and whether Google would be held liable in a case in which, a channel informed the company that it wasn't kid-directed content, but it turned out to be?
So if YouTube has actual knowledge that content is directed to children and it is collecting information about or from users of that content, then it will be liable. So that's just the rule. That's the black letter law. With respect to this idea that Google should have or should implement an algorithm or some sort of a classifier system for reviewing content and putting it in the child-directed bucket, that is something that that may be something that's among the changes announced by Google this morning. Is there anything in Google's announcement, Kristen, that discusses the algorithm? Okay, so the announcement this morning says that the company intends to find child-directed content using machine learning. We thought about imposing that type of a requirement by order, but ultimately decided against.
So they've decided against machine learning, like I told you before. And they also say that Google is going to be, and when I say Google, I mean by extension YouTube, they are going to implement, via statement, they said they were going to implement machine learning to find those folks who are not complying with COPPA. In other words, they do have content directed at children, and they're saying that they don't. And those are the people that are really under fire here. Now, where it gets gray, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but where it gets gray is, how do you know if your content is actually directed at children? And we've all seen the documents, right? We know that it has a lot to do with these particular guidelines. The subject matter being appealing to children, appealing being the key phrase, which is so ambiguous that I can't even imagine how somebody wrote this down and thought it was a good draft. I mean, it's look, here's a great example. Products primarily purchased or consumed by kids. That means that all of those programs, the Lego videos for adults, because there are a lot of adults that enjoy Legos. I'm not one of them, but there is a lot out there. By this rule, by these guidelines, they would have to classify their content as directed at children, or hope that they're not targeted, or fight it. So that's what it boils down to. And there are several other in here. Yeah, like if I ever say whatever, that means that that now maybe this is child directed. I don't think so. Cool games. Ask your parents. The funny part about this, ask your parents, is that it's in this very document. This very document is aimed at children. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I'm not going to go over the concern over user interface, because what Mr. Smith talks about is, the question was, are you concerned about how this will change the interface? And he says yes, and then he just goes on to talk about apps and how kids-focused apps and websites are where he sees us going. He's very encouraged by that. I totally get that. That's awesome. But it's somewhat inconsequential. I think if we're all concerned about children's personal information, that is 12 and below, then I agree. All that content that is actually directed toward them, the one that could potentially garner their personal information, should be on a protected website. Or app. I got no problem with that at all. I think everyone would agree with that. But you know, the problem here is how to classify it as such, and how nebulous the requirements are, and how we'll all look at this and think, well, we're all going to get snared. Like I just said, you know, I mentioned Legos, and I said, ask your parents, and whatever cool games. If I just say that, oh, you know what I say in my shows, kids, don't try this at home. Well, does that put me at risk of being construed as a child-directed channel? You see, it's the ambiguousness that just drives everyone nuts. And I don't have an answer for that. I wish I had a concrete answer for that, but I don't. So he also goes, how did they arrive at penalties? And I thought this was interesting as well.
We do have a question from Kirk Victor with FTC Watch.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for taking questions. Most of mine have been covered, but one recurring criticism is, how did you arrive at the penalty figures? That was a criticism both in Facebook and again on this. Can you elaborate a bit on how you came up with these numbers?
So, honestly, I would love to elaborate on how we came up with the numbers, but that information is non-public. It involves revenue figures from the various channels that we looked at.
And then it goes into
I will tell you that the number was revenue-based, and it was, and as in our other recent COPPA cases, was a multiple of revenue. What we calculated to be the revenue earned from targeted advertising with respect to these channels. Now, keep in mind that YouTube could still serve up contextual advertising.
We'll get into contextual advertising here in a second. What he's saying is they arrived at, one, the 170 million penalty based on how much they knew about YouTube's revenue intake from for personalized ads on those type of programs. And two, they also came up with the $42,000, $530 potential penalty per video based on what those channels, the amalgamation of those channels have made, or the average, I would say. So you can bet your butt that the Baby Sharks and the Peppa Pigs, who are running those personalized ads, are the ones driving the figures that the FTC has come up with. That I thought was something that we really needed to point out. I want to finish this clip real fast.
So not targeted ads, and there would be some revenue earned from contextual advertising, and so we tried to not include that in the calculation.
Well, good for you, FTC, I would say. Because if what happened should happen, that rather than be completely ostracized on this platform and others, I would say that the best thing for child-directed content producers or creators would be to move to child-friendly sites that don't collect that personal information and also have a verifiable parental consent. That way, you can run contextual ads. The contextual ad market will go way up, and I think you will still earn money. I mean, it still all boils down to finding out whether or not you are actually targeting children in this. So let's move on to the next clip. He talks about changes as it relates to the importance of the ruling that I thought was quite interesting. And believe me, I've skipped out a few of these. I only have 2 more to go after this, and then we'll get on to some discussion. If you guys want to call in, let me see. I'll add that into the description box, which I meant to do, but like I said, I was in a rush. By the way, all of these links to the FCC conference, the presser here, and of course a few more, the FTC press conference, the COPPA survey on compliance, which is what I just showed you in text, and also the petition link and a comment for the FTC link, which we'll get to in a moment, are all in the description box below on YouTube. I implore you, look at those and make sure that that you visit, you sign the petition, you write a comment, hold the FTC's feet to the fire, if you would. What we want to do is make sure that the rules are more ironclad, which I wish, as you know, I wish YouTube would do the same thing. But I think we need to make sure that we voice our opinion. We have till, I believe it's the 10th of December. This still. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because I think they extended that. But that's the only way that they will get the message. They're already ahead of schedule on revising COPPA, which is every 10 years, which is why it was 1998. I think it was enacted in 2000. They waited until 12 or 13 to update it again, and they weren't scheduled for another update until 2021 or 2022. But this, of course, changes the game, and it's up to us to voice our opinion. So please do that. All right. Now this is important because in this next clip, he's questioned about how aggressively the FTC will enforce the COPPA, especially in light of the recent settlement.
Joan Salzmann with CNET.
Hi, yes. Thank you for taking another question from me. I actually wanted to ask a question also about the sweeps. There was language in describing them initially about how FTC is prepared to take aggressive action or corrective measures should they find noncompliance. Can you characterize what sort of measures are on the table and what about them would be aggressive?
Well, I mean, with COPPA, COPPA is one of those few privacy rules that we enforce that has civil penalties. So when we talk about aggressiveness, we are typically talking about civil penalties. And again, I know that there may be some difference of opinion about this, but in my judgment, this is an eye-popping civil penalty. And again, it represents a multiple of the revenues realized from this practice. And so I think that we would have strong penalties in future cases against content creators and channel owners as well, particularly when we would have a situation where the channel owner was specifically asked, are you child-directed? And the channel owner said no.
Did you catch that? That means don't lie, people. That absolutely means don't lie. If you're confused, or if you can't determine whether or not your content is child-directed or not, then you should seek advice from an attorney who specializes in this. Don't go to a real estate attorney. Don't go to a personal injury attorney. Go find someone, and they're going to pop up soon. In fact, you can probably do a search on YouTube now about lawyers commenting on this very same issue. And many will do it pro bono. Some won't. But find an attorney that can advise you on and look at your content and make sure, because if you're that close, let's say you are that adult Lego content creator, then you want to know. I don't worry about it so much, as you know. This isn't I don't worry about that. Hey kids, don't try this at home. That's a joke, and it's not at all meant for kids. It is meant for our younger audience members, 13 and above. But some people have, content that could be construed as directed at kids, and you really need to find out before you before you make a statement that could get you in trouble as looks like you're trying to skirt the process. So take that for what it is. Again, I am not a lawyer. I'm not here for advice. I'm just giving my opinion. So let's continue this.
So
One more after
when
this.
we see those facts, we're going to have to evaluate them. Every case is different. We'll have to evaluate the facts that we are given, and we'll have to evaluate them in context. But if I'm a channel owner, those facts don't look so good for me, I think.
Yeah, and that's the scary part of that. What he's saying is that he will look at it in context. Trust that as far as you can throw it, because context is subjective to many people, and that worries me a great deal. So think about that when you're analyzing your own content. Again, I don't worry about it, but I know there are a lot of people that do and should. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of this. It is the government, and as much as I have as angry as I am with much of what government has become and does. It is the world we live in. So you've got to play the game and fight only when your principles are such that it requires a fight, and do fight for your principles, by the way. Don't take my advice. Do it if you feel the need to. So now to close this out, we've got one more clip. And in this clip, he's talking about whether or not YouTube is the end game, or is the battle royale. And we all know that it being the big fish, it was targeted, especially by those consumer groups that brought it to the FCC's attention. But we'll find out from the Bureau Director how far that goes.
Ben Brody from Bloomberg. I guess I better make it good. What's your level of concern about platforms with actual knowledge of data collection of child-directed content out there? Is this the end of the war or the first battle?
Well, it's clearly the first battle, right? Whether it's the only battle, I don't know. My hunch is not, but that, because there are a lot of platforms that may be in this same space, and we don't necessarily think of them. So people often speak of YouTube as being sort of sui generis. It's the only one of its kind. It's the biggest, and it's the baddest, and I think that that's probably not right. If you think more broadly about platforms, could it include over-the-top television? YouTube's there, and what other kinds of platforms that host this kind of user-generated video content? And there are a lot of them, and there are new ones every day. So I think that it is clearly the first battle. Would that it were the only battle and that everybody gets the message. But from our perspective, we're not going to be resting on our laurels. That this is this is a new front in the COPPA enforcement world.
So there you go. There you go. He's talking about how YouTube is not the end all be all here. Now he mentions television and side hands, kind of a, he skirted around the issue of whether or not other online platforms would be liable as well, or at least under scrutiny, for lack of a better term. But we all know. We should know. This will cover everything. And again, I'm going to say one more time that it should. And the reason I think it should is because we're all concerned about kids' privacy, and no one should be collecting information about young children without verifiable parental consent. Now, what this boils down to, and again, I implore you to go watch this this entire video, make your own judgments. Like I said, the link is right down in the description box in YouTube, and make sure that you understand it. Analyze your position in this world as a content creator, if you are a content creator. If you're not, think about what it means if you've got kids who are watching YouTube just unfettered. And And then do what you think is right, especially when it comes to your content, because you don't want to be on the wrong side of this. and a lot of it's going to be judgment call of your own. So you've got to look at it and think, well, how close am I to being child directed? Is my analytics showing this? This should be a direct indicator. If you're actually seeing, and I'm not looking at my analytics right now, but if you're actually seeing an audience that is extraordinarily young, then you may be forced to, no matter what your content is, because they're looking at, remember, they looked at it from a presumption standpoint. Well, that presumption is going to include, your analytics, which are public knowledge as far as YouTube is concerned. Not every, YouTube can, you can. That is easily something they could subpoena and view. And if you're making, someone mentioned Christmas lights, and I would agree. I don't think, a fancy Christmas tree or a fancy house lit up, doing wonderful things like my buddy Brad from Drone Kings in Darwin has done several times in the past. The music-oriented light. See, now it's flashing again. Maybe somebody is doing something at between 10 and 11 that is bottlenecking this stupid-ass consumer. YouTube is messing with me. And I really haven't said much bad about YouTube. I understand where they were coming from. I understand why they did what they did. I think they screwed us in that they could have been compliant. They could have been guarding against this, but they completely ignored it. And that's why we're in the situation we're in now. So we've got 15 years or more of people creating content, not knowing that they needed to be, or that they were on a platform that was collecting information, personal information from kids. Okay, good. And they should have taken steps to help the people that they invited onto their platform understand if there was any liability involved in that. I must have not, or I became COPPA compliant here in the last 5 minutes, but it's still flashing, and my stream status is poor, so you're likely to get more buffering. And I tested this for almost 2 hours this afternoon on two different types. I did the straight to YouTube, and then I did a full restream, and here we are. But that is what it is. I'm going to have to work at it more, that or find another time slot, because this is ridiculous. I'm thinking that, I don't know, 95% of my neighbors are looking at porn now. I don't know. This is just absolutely ridiculous. This is the third night in a week. Hello, Ganna. How come you showed up on that now? Anyway, by the way, I'm going to stay on a little bit longer tonight if you guys want me to. And if you've got questions about this and you'd like to talk to me about it, we can just discuss it. You don't have to ask me any questions about it. But joining is real easy. As you know, all you got to do is point your browser to zoom.us, click on join a meeting, and enter that meeting number when it asks for it. You'll be in my green room, and I'll bring you up one at a time. I'm going to say probably for the next half hour, so jump on if you want to. If you don't, that's cool. We'll end it here, and this will just be another informative video call-in show, which is rare, but it does happen, and I'm happy to do it. I hope you guys, I want to say hello before I get any further to all the folks that showed up in chat. Let's see if it'll even tell me the participants here. All you people are talking, and I get like 11 in the participants section. Awesome. But I'm going to name you off real fast. We got Above and Beyond Drones. We got Grumpy Vlogger. We got Jelly Duck 100. We got Northern Ohio Railroad Action. We got Scott Victor. We've got Jesse Mendez. We got Pixelpia Teaching and Learning with Dave the Producer. We've got Drone Kings in Darwin. We've got Crap My Dad Makes Me Watch. We've also got San. How you doing? We got American Gold Prospectors. We have, who else do we have? You've never seen me do this before, have you? We've got American Gold Prospectors. We've got Ghana. We've got, I saw Patty in here earlier. Patty Broussard, Array Artist, good to see you. Good to see all you guys. We've got JD Tremaine. We've got Chris Hope. Good to see you guys. That's the top of where I got it. Let's see. Who else do I have? Who else do I have? Have I missed anyone? Have I missed you? Let me know if I missed you guys. Thanks for being here. Really. Ghost Pirate. How you doing, Ghost Pirate? Welcome to the show. And Timothy Chambers, how are you? Guys, if you're here for the first time, this is a video calling show. Normally what I do is I go through a subject real fast. Tonight, it took me an hour to go through a 45-minute video, which is the COPPA Press Conference held by the FTC. Still here. Thanks, Patty. We've got Mr. Lodak. Guys, thanks for being here. I've got a couple guests that I'm going to bring up. I'm sure they've got some great discussion points on this. Tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong. If you guys think I was wrong in any of this, I want to know, because I don't want to be wrong. Let's get my first guest up here real fast. Keep me from flapping my gums too much. All right. But by the way, if it is your first time here, make sure you subscribe, or you're following if you're watching on one of the other platforms, and make sure you give this thing a like if it's your cup of tea. I think I will probably save this off as its own video as well. I don't know. I rarely have time for that anymore. But let me see. Let me get your name up here, Pia. Oh, it made it tough on me, didn't it?
I did.
No, you didn't. I changed things in my, you know, when I did my thank you for everyone last night. It's not even there. Are you kidding me? It's not even there. Well, I'll tell you what, though.
Well, I have my name on my chest.
All right, we'll just bring you up. Let me do just that. Pia, how the heck are you?
Hi.
Look,
I got my tire fixed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Love the hoodie though.
Yeah.
Nice.
This can get me in trouble though.
Oh, it can. Oh, well, yeah. See, now that's what I was talking about. You just don't know sometimes. But you and your content too, because you do talk. You're talking to educators, but I wonder if people wouldn't misconstrue that as, talking to kids as well.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's the scary part with all this. The definitions they have at FTC that they are going to look at. That's so old-fashioned. It's really 1998. Duh. I mean.
I know. I was taken aback by that as anyone.
It's crazy, and they are so unaware about what it means to be a YouTube creator.
It really does, and that's why. Yeah. That's why I and many others have been pushing for comments to the FCC. I've written one. I've seen several people talk on my Discord server that they've written one as well. It is really. Oh, good. It is.
I'm for a third one.
Good for you. But it is imperative that we all voice our opinion to that effect, if not some other effects as well, because I know other people have opinions about how this is going to be implemented. So good for you. Good for you, Pia.
I mean, I am really not worried about I think I can slip through even with Ghana's great artwork.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
But I know there are many channels that I love that I can see are really in the gray zone.
Yeah.
I mean.
Some really big channels, too.
Yeah. And it's scary because they equal this to everything else that is online. If you have a website, I can have a website and have cookies and collect information.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am responsible, not the owner of the server. I can see that. But YouTube is so different and they don't understand that.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And but like I said, it's up to us to help them understand.
Absolutely.
Because we're the one with the boots on the ground. And if they're not listening to us, which is why they actually extended that public input date, which is it is the 10th, says Jim from Above Yvonne Drones. He's up next. So get in. Like I said, the links are in the description. Make sure you take those. Get your opinion in, and make sure that that you have, and be nice. Don't as emotionally charged as this is. Make sure that you're professional and factual about what it is you'd like them to do in the implementation of this.
And I think the best way to go about it when you write to them is to ask questions and use, for example, the document you had up with the definitions, what they are looking for to define if something is kid content. Copy that and use those descriptions in your reply to them and ask them, is this relevant today? I think that's the only way we can get through to them, to make them realize, I mean, such a thing as colorful.
Yeah.
I mean,
bold
what
colors.
do they want? A black and white internet?
I know. Is my logo kid oriented?
Could be.
It's bold, bright colors.
The scary part.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
don't
Exactly.
know how the person looking at it will interpret.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I love that you said use questions as part of your response based on that document. And that document is also linked. And I'm not trying to plug anything because I don't get anything for you guys clicking links in my description box unless it's merch.
Yeah.
Shameless self-promotion.
Like
Yeah. Yes, I have a coffee cup with Ghana's art, fan art on mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is linked in the description, and it's about halfway down in that PDF. You'll find those exact descriptors, I guess, for child-directed content. Make sure you get to know those, ask questions about them to the FTC, like Pia said, and that's the only thing we can do, right, Pia?
And there was a section in there about teens, if I don't.
In teens? About teens?
About teens and material that is specifically directed to teens, how that spills over to the younger kids and therefore can end up. So even if you are making videos that are directed to teens, it can be interpreted according to that definition as for kids 12 and under.
That's true. That's true.
And that's scary.
It is scary. It is scary.
Because that moves the goalpole a little bit higher up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does. It does. Oh, look at this.
I have so much I want to say about this, but I will let other people talk today, and I will keep on talking in the chat.
All right. Well, thanks for your opinion on this, Pia. I respect it, and I'm always glad to hear it.
And congrats to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You can get monetized now, so they can take it away from you.
Well, you know my stance on that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take care, hon.
Bye.
Yes. Who doesn't know my stance on monetization? I'm going to take this opportunity to say, and well, first of all, I'm going to have to close the phone lines because we will run way late. I've got two more people to talk to, and we can, don't ever forget on this show, you guys are more than welcome to bring up any of the subjects of the almost 250 live streams that I've done in the last year. Again, my year anniversary was yesterday. It did not go off without a hitch. I don't know if it was YouTube or the interwebs that stunted my celebration, but we got it back up, and you guys were troopers for following me over there, and I produced that video, which is really a thanks to you guys. I know it looks like self-serving rehash of all the work that I've done over the year, but really, every time I see that, I think about the people that came up and talked about those particular subjects, and it's awesome. And then today, I should mention that I just popped into Pusa Studios to say hello and watch a little bit as I was working, and I'll be damned if he didn't hone in on me bring me up, and he literally helped me up over 1K. Thanks to you, Andrew. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Not expected, not asked for, but pleasantly received, and I hope that those folks who did subscribe to me during that, that whole still waiting during that whole show, appreciate what it is, I'm trying to do here. And they will get involved in, if nothing else, watching, because sometimes it's fun to watch other people have opinions on certain subjects, or chatting. It's nice to get involved in the conversation, and and I'd also love to see you guys up on the show to talk about these. Now, I've always said that this show is a primer for folks who may grow huge someday and have interviewers knocking down their door. Well, I want to give them a forum and a relaxed, laid back forum where we can sit and talk about just about anything. So it doesn't have to be any of that. And thanks guys for staying up so late with me. It's 11:11. So again, thanks to all of you for all of you 1,000 subscribers. I mean, seriously, thank you so much. I'm not going to celebrate that particular, just like I said last night. The number 1,000 doesn't mean a lot to me because I'm not going to monetize until some of these rules are ironed out and there's not so much ambiguity, because I don't believe that that YouTube deserves the money that they would get advertising on my channel. Not that I wouldn't deserve the advertising dollars. It's a matter of principle. So the 1K, one thing I'm happy about 1K is, one, that there's 1,000 people decided at one point or another to click on this show. And I still have well over 40% of you folks who ring the bell. And that means a ton to me, because the average being between 20 and 30%. If I've got 40 to 45%, that is awesome. That says that tells me a lot. And I love you for it. I honestly love you for it. So yes, I did turn off the meeting. That's okay, Scott. You can catch the rest of it later. Thank you, Grumpy Vlogger, for the I do owe you. Ming and Moto, how you doing? Good to see you. If you guys are watching on different platforms, my chat aggregator is not working, so head on over to YouTube if you would. You can just do a search on Video Call-In Show and pop up. I've got two more. Well, no, I've got one big guest. Looks like Nora dropped off. I don't know why, Nora. Should have stayed on, man. I'd hang around and talk to you. But let me bring up my next guest. Good friend of the show. He's been on several times. Let's see if I can find you. Oh, now your name is still on that list. Let me know when you can hear me, Jim.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. I can hear you too. How you doing, man?
Can't complain. No one wants to hear it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, thank you, Gold Prospectors. He says, make the money, Jim. You earned it. Guys, the way I want, if you guys want to support this show, I would rather you not have to sit through some boring ads. I would rather you get something of value. So if you guys want to buy merch, if you want to, all these links are in my About page. If you want to throw a PayPal tip my way, if you want to subscribe to Subscribe Star, where you get more content, then do so. It's all Video Call-In Show right there. So sorry, Jim, I had to do that shameless plug.
No, but YouTube's going to make the money from the advertisers anyway. Might as well, in Scott's words, get some.
Well, only if I discover that they're running ads on my completely ad turned off channel at the moment. Now that may mean that I'm not commercially viable, but I'm willing to take that risk at this point.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah. The vagaries are there's a plethora, right? And then you turn around and it says they'll look and see if you're not commercially viable, they'll delete your channel. Well, everybody under 1,000 subs is not commercially viable.
Yeah, that's true. And that argument's been made. People think that that YouTube is in the middle of that transition, right? You know, we're all seeing the YouTube exclusive videos and that sort of thing. We all know that they're kind of going toward the Netflix model. I made a whole stink of it not too long ago. Maybe it was earlier tonight. I don't remember. and yeah, we're all at risk when we are not commercially viable. There's those air quotes again. Sorry, folks.
My other point is, what happens to STEM? You know, you've got drones like the Tello that are specifically made for children to learn Python programming language.
Oh.
And things like that. And I thought maybe Pixelpedia would hit on it, but she did kind of a little, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, in past shows, actually, we talked about her channel and as being an educator and what that might mean to that community, for sure. I don't know, man. What?
Yeah, when you get to the vagaries of basically they can decide what is and is not aimed at children, and then reducing the amount that goes out to the creators is turning around because they're getting paid the same by the advertisers. They're reducing the amount going out to creators. So that's just making up the $170 million fine, which was part of my argument to the FTC in my not long-winded, but succinct comment.
Sure. That's exactly why I said what I said earlier. You know, it's you can have fun with you know, the money that came from the settlement took care of expenses the government went through, but really, those sort of expenses come from people.
Yeah.
Companies, like I've said before, companies don't ship money. Companies get money from people. And when you start begging for higher taxes and you start cheering fines made by the government, you're really cheering on higher prices for yourself, or lower jobs, or lower returns on your 401k, all that kind of thing. That's exactly what you're asking for. A lot of people don't look at it that way.
I wonder if they'll be cutting those, you know, those streams that just go on forever, where the guy puts the phone down, and you know, we've discussed them before.
I'm going to say I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope they are judicious in how they approach this. Maybe even some of those 24/7 streams. I don't know how many I saw. Remember when the old T series and PewDiePie battle was going on? They would just have those stupid things up forever. There'd be 500 to 1,000 people watching those, and it's just numbers, flipping. God, what a bandwidth waster.
I know.
They're probably in my neighborhood.
The only guy I know who gets chopped three nights in a row.
Oh man, what is that? Now it's still in and out. I'm watching it flash a little bit yellow here and there. I don't get it at all. Maybe I need to reboot my cable modem. But Jesus,
do you get the settings like OBS, where you can set it from 7,000 to 9,000 kilobytes a second?
Oh sure, yeah,
I
absolutely. Like I said, I'm 4.5 meg, which is should be standard. That's what YouTube's looking for at a 1080p. But it was being throttled back somehow to like 2.5, and sometimes when it's yellow, it's well below 1 meg. So I don't know. Like I said, you were there for the tests today. It went off without a hitch, and I had tons of shit open, so I should have been bandwidth city, and yet I didn't have anything like I'm having right now, or last night or the night before.
Well, now it's good. We just had a little problem there in the middle.
Oh, good.
That was it. It's been fine ever since. I didn't want to be long-winded. That's really what I wanted to say. I think you're cutting off areas here, despite your nose,
Yes, they are.
With them and that, and then cutting the pay of the creators to make up for your fine. I think it's blatant.
Oh, yeah.
And the FTC shouldn't allow that.
Yeah, but how do you I'm in that camp where you can't have government limiting the income of a company, or even the unless you're talking about usury laws where you're really screwing people. But it's a choice to monetize, and well, not in the case you were talking about, but it should be. And I don't know. I have a real problem with government regulating how a business operates from a financial level. If they're forcing people to do something, like, for instance, utilities. If you're locked into utilities, okay, because that's monopoly. But if you're not a monopoly, then I don't know, man. I can't go along with that. But us recognizing it is more important, I would say, because that gives us the option to opt out, or tell them to screw themselves. Then market forces take over. So hopefully,
and they have written in their terms of service the point that if you are not commercially viable, you will be deleted at their discretion.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that that this platform is not for children 13 years and younger. They
Yeah.
have out and out said it.
Yeah, they say that, but like you said, that's no real protection.
No,
Because
my
they,
11-year-old granddaughter watches it every day.
exactly, they allow it.
Yeah.
The other one is that, what was I going to go with that? The commercially viable thing. That is just a further description of what they've always said, that they have no obligation to host any content at any time. So,
Right.
so you know, they've always had the option of booting you off. Now all they can do is say, oh, well, you weren't commercially viable. So then it's almost, in many cases, it's non-arguable. It's not appealable. So I think they did that just as a cover your ass type of clause, honestly.
I turned my lighting back on to auto, no matter how white it makes me. But the other thing I wanted to say is, the AI that they're employing now, right? You've seen that with Andrew, how he pulls up your thumbnail and it says you're 70% happy, 33%, and it reads what's on your shirt that wasn't intended.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Far-reaching algorithms now, and it's just getting worse. Okay, I don't want to take up everybody's time.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being on, Jim. I always love to have you up here, bud. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. And but like I said, they've always reserved the right, YouTube that is, to not host your content, and that would include you and your channel for any reason whatsoever. So that clause that was added into the terms of service, and I think comes into effect on the 10th, honestly, is very much the same thing. It's just they've been able to narrow it down a little bit more, gives them leverage to put a label on it and justify it, because now they can, like all those, like he was talking about, all the 1,000 or below channels, even the ones above that aren't monetized, they could literally say you're not commercially viable because you're not making money with your content and you're not making us money, which is the subtext. We're going to eliminate you. And that's the trouble we've all had for years, is that it looks like that they're starting to cater more and more to the large channels in hopes that they will be the next channels that they can use in their goal to become the next Netflix. Reason being is because it's exclusive content. And if they can get those larger channels who have huge audiences to buy into that sort of Netflix model, then they've got content that the other ones don't have, and it gives them an advantage. So I think this is pure conjecture on my part, but I think they're setting themselves up to do exactly that. We're going to go back to this video eventually, find out if I'm right when it comes when that sort of thing happens. Hello, Gary's Sprinkler Repair. How are you? I noticed you were a somewhat recent subscriber. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Guys, I'm going to go through Nora here real fast, and then, well, okay, I got two more guests, guys, two more guests, and then I'm going to go through as many questions as I possibly can. So, questions and comments that have tagged me. So please get those in now before we get too far into this. Let me see if I can find your name, Nora. I lost all of my names because I'm on a different. Oh, look, there it is. Awesome. All right, Jake, how you doing, man? Can you hear me?
Well, am I good?
Yep, you're good. You're good.
How am I doing? Well, I don't know. Where's your PayPal and Square jar at?
It's on my about page. It's in my links, but it is just paypal.me/videocallin show.
well, the next pay period, I may send you a good chunk of change.
Oh, you are the man. Thanks.
As much as a PG person I want to be, I've been biting my tongue for these past 2 weeks.
Trying to be PG?
I'm trying to be PG as in calm, cool, and collective.
Yes.
You know.
I don't.
Go ahead, Jim.
I don't have that personal patience, apparently. If you watched any of last night's shows, you'll know that for a fact.
As a rail fan, I learned to be patient because I'm outside waiting 2, 3, 4 hours for the next train. So it's just, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, what do you think about? I guess I want to know two things. Where do you think your channel stands? And two, what did you think of my assessment of the press conference?
Where my channel stands, I don't know. I'm going to take your advice and do. In fact, while you guys were going on, I happened to call my local, lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of want to, because I don't know, as a rail fan channel, you know, the rail fan community, the model railroad community, is considered
very close.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in the gray area.
Yeah. Well, I've seen some of your stuff, and I must confess that I haven't seen probably enough to make a proper assessment. But when I think of your content, I think of full size trains more so than model trains. And given that, if one were to look at it from a distance, right, not close to it, not into that sort of stuff, do you think that people would see your content? And this is good for everybody, actually. You should be asking yourselves this question. If you can look at it with non-involved eyes or objective eyes, would you think that your content would be attractive to children? Do you?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
That's
probably why you made the good first step, man, and try to get an attorney's advice on this. Because if you're not really sure, I mean, if you don't lean heavily one way or the other, then yeah, you need to probably seek counsel. Again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not professional or legal advice, but and this goes out to everybody, Nora. I should just call you Jake. Sorry. But
everybody calls me Nora on YouTube. It's fine.
I know. I'm just used to that too. It's like Not a Great Gamer. Everybody calls him Nag.
I prefer Nora.
You prefer Nora? Okay. But yeah, that's something everyone can take away from this. If you're not certain, and you know, I laugh about my logo and stuff, but I can't imagine that any kid be watching this show of adults talking and think, oh yeah, this is fun. I wonder when, you know, Wile E. Coyote runs off a cliff. No, that's just not that's just not what this content's all about. So I don't have any problem with that. But if you do have a problem with that, I think you did the right thing, man.
I mean, first of all, I don't have that type of money.
True.
You know, I don't think none of us here on YouTube has that money.
That's true too.
You know, I don't want to classify myself as poor, but but I feel like I'm more locally. You know, I work. You know, it's just, you know, I just don't know.
Tell me what you tell me what you think about this, Nora. I just had this thought. And this only applies to those who have. Well, I don't know. Can you do polls? I guess you can't on your community channel yet, or your community tab. But those of you who have just over 1,000 and maybe not quite as much as millions, I wonder if you ran a poll for your subscribers, asking them. Now, this wouldn't be something you would make a snap decision on, but asking them if they thought your content could be considered targeted at children. And that would give you a great third eye look at that, as long as you didn't have a whole lot of trolls as subscribers. And always take it with a grain of salt. But I'm thinking about that as a low cost way of trying to analyze how other people might see your content. I don't know if that's brilliant or stupid, but what could it hurt? At least you would have an idea of how it's perceived by the general public. What do you guys think of that? You don't like it?
Oh, I like it. I like it. I wish somebody here on YouTube, I like it how, I don't like it how they're forcing it on us on their own mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
know.
know, I mean, why would you lie to the government? Why would you lie to your own government? If you or I did that, Jim, we would probably be put in jail. I mean, it's like lying to the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just don't do that.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And it's one of those things where, we don't have 170 million. We don't have most of us don't have $42,530 on a single video, much less a potential, ton of them.
Unless if I win the lottery next week, then yeah.
You know what they say about the lottery. You have as much chance of being mauled by a polar bear and a grizzly bear on the same day than you do winning the lottery. Always love that analogy.
I'd rather be struck by lightning than get hit fined with 42,000.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you.
But I'm not worried. I was worried about it, but what really scares me is this new terms of service. That's what really, really scares me.
Oh, the commercial viability. Well, yeah, and it should.
I mean, I feel sorry for everybody here on YouTube.
Yeah, because we could all dry up. They could all kick us off and say, "Oh, look, we're the next Hulu." Sorry about your luck, folks. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So back up your content. That is number one. Back up your content, and I would say just keep moving, and keep your options open. There are a ton of other platforms. I know they don't have the audience, but there are a ton of other platforms where we could pick up and do the same thing. Although we still have to be COPPA compliant. I would say that we could still do the same thing on several different platforms, and I would suggest that everybody look into those. It's why I'm multi-streaming. It's exactly why.
I mean, I don't want to self-promote, but I've been looking into BitChute.
Yes, I have too. BitChute and BitTubers, and then there's DLive, and I'm not a big fan of Twitch because its own, what is it? That's not Twitter. That's shit. Mm-hmm. Who? Do you remember?
I don't know.
And then Periscope is owned by Twitter, but what's Twitch owned by? Oh well. But yeah, there are a lot of alternatives, and even some of the big YouTubers are moving there already. I know a lot of people that have moved over to BitChute. I know a lot of people moved over to DLive. It's not ideal, but yeah. See, the thing is, here it is, and I hate to cut you on this, Nora, because this is really important. YouTube might be the largest audience and what we're all familiar with across the board, right? They're the biggest fish. But if they do what we're all thinking they will do or might do, and cut off everybody who's not commercially viable, they are no longer what we think they are. Which makes moving to another platform easy, because all of us who are kicked off of this platform because we're not commercially viable will find new homes. The audience will move to those new homes. So I want everybody to keep that in mind, not Pornhub, grumpy vlogger. Oh my Lord, I didn't think that would come up again tonight.
Lloyd, I'm gonna have to take up. I'm gonna have to take up on that offer, Lloyd.
Oh, I can only imagine that there is some sort of weird twisted sex and trains. It's got to be out there, dude. You know that.
But that I'm glad he brought that up. The reason why I don't think my content is safe for kids is not the trains running itself. I believe it's the graffiti.
Oh.
I got a train this morning, and I'm not going to repeat what I read, but now I'm thinking right there's a perfect example.
That is a good example, but because you're photographing it, I don't think that contextually, now again, I am not qualified to give advice, but I don't think contextually that they would look at that and say that is targeted toward kids just because it's in there. And I've gone round and round of this, especially when they do say visual content appealing to children, which is something you should question them on when you write to the FTC. But what if I have Beyonce on? I know some of her fans are pre-tween. Not that I'm ever going to have Beyonce on the show, but you get what I'm saying. What if I have Mel Blanc? He's dead, of course, but someone of his stature who literally does appeal to kids. If I have them on my show, am I going to be in the same boat you are? I don't know, dude. I can't see that being it.
I'm just looking at the language. You don't want younger kids saying, all that stuff. You don't want to hear younger kids saying the racial slurs and all that stuff. That we sometimes see on rail cars.
Yeah.
I've seen it all.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. It is a gray area, man. But put some thought into that poll. I can't remember how many subs you got, but put some thought into that if you would, and maybe on Twitter. I know you're on Twitter, and just see how other people see it, man. And then you can actually use that for your lawyer too. It's like, well, most people don't see it this way. I ran a poll. I have I have 700 respondents, and 90% of them say no, and 10% say yes, or vice versa. Then you've got something to go on. At least give the lawyer something to judge by, because he's going to be looking at it from a contextual perspective as well. So, well, dude, did I answer all your questions, or do you have anything else to say? I'm going to move on to Ghana before I close the shop down.
I got so many questions, so many issues right now, and I know 4.2 billion other YouTubers have the same thing, so I'm going to jump off that way. Other guys can, other YouTubers, creators can jump on. So thanks for having me, Jim. And
well, thanks for being here, Nora. Thanks for your perspective. Best of luck, my friend. I wish everyone on YouTube. I'm just going to say it. Everyone on YouTube, the best of luck in this melee. So thanks again, bud.
You're welcome, and congratulations on 1K.
Thank you very much. Take care. It's when I see that, I'm just struck with sadness in that so many good, nice people are being affected in ways that they don't even know. That just boggles the mind. I've been on the wrong side of, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect you. And it does affect people before, which is why I'm not trying to do that here. Because I just don't know. Those two major bombs that they threw on us, the settlement, the reinvigorating of the COPPA regulations, and the commercially viable, leads me to believe that there's something hideous in the works, at least for us low-level YouTubians. Has that ever been coined before? I'm going to say it hasn't. Damn it, if I get nothing else out of this platform, it's going to be a few things that I've quipped and no one else has. I lost out on COPPApocalypse, but YouTubians, I'm going to stick with and say that I did that first. Somebody start a hashtag, will you? Let's bring up my next and final guest, because we're going to be floating at midnight tonight. And that is an unusual one for a Thursday, but it is the last show of this particular week, and I wanted to make sure a subject matter as important as this was well covered. I hope you guys got something out of this. So again, can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you.
Fantastic. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, you know how I am.
How terrible is my lag today?
You're light? Or you're live?
No, my lagging.
Oh, it's not really all that bad, it doesn't seem.
Okay.
This we can work with. I'll just make sure that I speak in full, complete sentences and leave you a nice pause every time I'm done.
As usual. Thank you.
No problem. So, Ghana, we've already had a discussion about this, you and I. And is there any changes or anything else you wanted to comment on it?
Well, I don't think a lot of people that are in the chat have much to worry about, because their content isn't geared towards children, and that's pretty obvious. I'm kind of worried because I do use popular cartoon characters in some of my animations, and I could see where my content might come off as being for children, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to keep going. And if I get shut down, you know, it was fun while it lasted.
So you would use the contextual argument to say that it's not directly targeted toward children. Is that what I'm getting?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can see it from your type of channel, and I look at a lot of channels that do animation. Think of the big ones like Odd Ones Out. I think we had the discussion before. Jaden Animation. There's an Alex guy that does parodies, or not parodies, but commentary on movies and things. Those are huge YouTube channels that use nothing but animation to get their point across, and you know, good and funny animation as well. And I can't help but think that they are shaking in their boots right now, losing those personalized ad revenue. I know that wasn't a question, but so I get it. Our lag got worse.
Yeah. Oh no.
That was my IFB. I was whispering in your ear, Ghana, the lag got worse. I'm going to give you more time to answer.
I can hear you, but it's very choppy. So anyway, I didn't want to stay up here too long. I just wanted, you know, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I know that I'm in a very gray area. I'm aware of this, but, you know, this is what I do. This is how I express myself on the platform. I'm not going to stop. So, yeah.
Well, good. I love what you do, and I don't really want you to stop. If I had anything to say about what you do, Ghana, that you might do to protect yourself, if you're not going to, you know, classify yourself as a child-directed content creator, is maybe aim your drawings, not change your drawings at all, but talk to the adults in the room more than you would the children. That's what I would say.
Right.
You think that's about right?
Good advice. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ghana. And you know, I wish you tremendous luck. I love you. And I can't thank you enough again for, you know, what you've done for me, and all the best, hon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me up, and congratulations on 1K. Woo.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you later, I'm sure. But don't, of course, never be a stranger.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye. All right, folks. Well, let's talk a bit about this. You have left me several tag messages in the chat. I'm going to try to cover those before we close up shop tonight. Drum Kings in Darwin says, just got a Twitch notification that you were back on live. Hey, do you think it's your internet? You think it's your internet for that to occur? I wouldn't think so. Oh, well, no. It probably was. We probably had a dropout, and then Twitch picked back up, and you got another notification. Pixby says, are you ready for a long night? She's going to call in. Going straight back to the beginning here. Better go to bed. Have a great day. Jelly Duck, I'm sorry I missed you, buddy. I know I said hello earlier, but Timothy Chambers, good to see you. I don't know if I said hello to you. Let's see. Any questions in here? Now that the serious shit is out of the way, Video Calling Show, congrats on the 1K. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. That's Brad from Drone Kings and Darwin YouTube channel. Thank you so much, my friend. Like I said, I can't thank you folks enough. I can't thank Pusha enough. It's fun to have met a milestone like that. It's really the people behind the numbers that mean more to me. So, and if I get my community tab, all is good, because then I'll be able to keep you guys updated even more so than just creating events. Grumpy Vlogger has written a response to the FTC. Good, folks. There are links in the description, if you don't know already, to the FCC press conference, to the guide. It's actually a survey, but it talks about the subject matter and the presentation of kid-directed content. Take a look at that. And there's also these. The hell am I thinking of? Lost my train of thought. It's almost midnight. The petition. Sign the petition. I think they're almost. They should be over 500,000 by now, and that's extraordinary. So all these links are in the bottom, plus all those other good links where you can you can hook up with me on Discord or Twitter, or even I'm gonna have to take this one down because I'm losing my faith in Reddit, but also Facebook and of course Instagram. And let's not forget merch email. If you guys have topic suggestions you'd like to suggest to me to cover in a show, if it's something that I can talk about or I'm passionate about, I think that people will want to talk about, I will absolutely put them on, and I will give you credit where credit is due. Have I missed any other questions? Grumpy Vlogger congratulates me on 1K. Thank you so much, Lloyd. I appreciate that. I hope you're still with us. Jesse Mendez says you cut out short yesterday, so you owe us. Jesse's talking about my 1 year anniversary show, which yes, I had some severe. Now my stream is solid. It's been solid for the last half hour, at least from this perspective, not from Ganna's perspective. No, Sean McGann, we are not testing. This is real. Let's see. Make the money, Jim. You've earned it. Well, that's why I talk about Subscribestar. As soon as I get enough Subscribestar members, those folks that want to regularly support this channel, I'm going to have private Zoom conferences with them, and we can talk about anything. We can actually, I can actually talk about digital marketing in their world. I can talk about graphics creation, website creation, all that sort of stuff. Even to a certain extent, the ins and outs of social media platforms, and of course, if you wanted to leave a tip, there's always the PayPal.me. All these are on my About channel, and I'm not trying to beg for money here, but the question has come up a couple times tonight. I said hello to Minion Moto. How you doing? Good to see you. Josh and Callie. How you doing? Welcome to the show, guys. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out tonight, and of course, if you're going to look now, my stream is, I must have said something wrong to YouTube. Arthur Moorhead, how you doing? Good to see you. Yes. Back up. Get some. Oh, I don't even have the voice for it tonight. I got to go through these fast because I don't see any other questions except for Pixelpedia and chat. I'm so sorry that I have to leave. Oh, okay. She's got to go. Well, Pixelpedia, thank you so much for coming up. Spirit Box Paranormal Dundee, how are you? Good to see you. He's way to bed, but thanks for being here. If you watch the replay on this, Drunk Kings of Darwin says any channel is attractive to kids in reality. That's true. Depends on how you look at it. And he says relevant to the kids. No, but it is a traffic. I know, and that's why all this is scary. Arthur Moorhead, thank you very much for the congratulations on 1,000 mark. I appreciate that. Let's see. Breaks my heart. Says, yeah. Nora says it breaks my heart. It really does, and I know it breaks mine too. For so many people. Patty Broussard, thank you so much for the congratulations. I appreciate that. Drone Kings is throwing up the Discord server. Yeah, we talk on there all the time. I try to hit it up most every day. Oh, and we're already up to over 560,000 on the petition. But don't let that stop you. If you haven't signed the petition, link is in the description. Go do it. If at the very least, sign the petition. But I hope that you will write a comment, like we were talking about. Use some of this information that they provided us to question, so that they can take another look at this, get it out of the friggin' 90s. Don't have a cowman. I'm sure that's in there somewhere, and actually nail down what this means visually appealing to children. What does that mean for those people who are on the fence, like Ganna, like Nora, like several of you out there? Video call, set up super chat. Oh, I have such a problem with that, American Gold Prospectors, because I know YouTube is going to make that money, and I don't think they're worthy yet. I think that their regulations are way too nebulous, way too broad, and I'm waiting for them to nail them down so that we know what to expect. So, Susan Hamilton, how you doing? I didn't see you there before. Sooner Sasquatch, how you doing? Good to see you. If I miss you, I apologize. But that kids love commercials. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Save family friendly content on YouTube. Oh, change. Okay, yep. And we've just got the link posted in the chat. Guys, take it. Thanks so much again for hanging out with me for these 2 hours, which is an extraordinarily long time for a standard video call-in show. And thanks to my guests for coming up and giving their opinion. I wish everyone luck in this time of need, I'll say, because it's not going to be easy. And even worse, if we're made to go through the shit and they decide to kill off the honestly, not, sorry, I don't do that air quote all the time. But if they decide to kill all the non-commercially viable channels, then we're all sunk, and this will all be for naught. And we'll have to go out and find new platforms. So if it were me, guys, I would start planning your exit strategy in the event that an exit strategy is needed. If it's not, then you're still good. You haven't wasted any time. But if there's an exit strategy that's required, it is prudent that you look for one now. And yes, William Thong, how you doing? Is that Thong or Thorg? Thorg. Thanks so much for that. You're right, and that's up to 42,530. I mean, they could slap some people on the wrist and then watch, either an exodus or complete compliance. You never know. We need a code word for YouTube from now on. You need to say, sir. All right, guys, listen, again, thanks to everybody for being here for this. You hung out with me for a good long time, and I appreciate it. I want everyone to have a good weekend. Don't forget Sunday night. Of course, we're going to do the another video call-in open panel that starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, and I want you guys to be there for that. I've limited it to a smaller group, but still everyone is invited. So first come, first serve. And if you got to drop off, that makes room for other people. Just trying to keep it so that we can actually have a conversation. I haven't chosen a subject matter for that yet, but I will soon. Trust me on that, because I like to get a subject going rather than just making it a free for all. We've done the free for all; they were fun, but they're kind of hard to manage. So make sure you join us for Sunday for that, and I'll have some more shows posted here for the next week. So don't miss that. There'll all be fun and interesting topics, I hope. But for now, that is going to do it for me. I want to thank everyone once again for both being on the show, subscribing, for ringing that bell, for following, for sharing my content, which is arguably no better compliment. And I want to leave you with this, as I always do. Make sure that you treat others the way